everyone, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Madeline and I create knitting content here on YouTube. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to make these really cute denim and knit pillows. So basically how we work these is we start by knitting this knit portion. So it's actually just knit flat, and I'll show you each of the steps you need to be able to make this portion. Then we just seam it on a few different edges to create this shape. Then second, I show you all the steps you need to be able to make the denim pillow cover, and then we just slide the knit portion right on top and it creates this really fun look. So I've done mine in a couple different colors just to show you the different sizes and colors that this specific yarn comes in. Down in the description box below you're going to find the full written version of the pattern, and that's going to include both the knit portion and the denim portion. You're also going to find the different video breakpoints, so that way you can fast forward or rewind to any specific part of the video you're looking for. And you're going to find links to all the materials I use to create my projects. If you have any comments or questions, please feel free to leave them down below. And if you're new to my channel, don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching. So first, starting off with my knitting needle size. Here I'm using size US 15 knitting needles. And I do have circular knitting needles just because what we're going to be working with is going to be quite large. So it is knit flat, but I do again recommend you use circular knitting needles, and you'll want a cord that's at least 24 inches long. And how long of a cord you use will really depend on what size pillow you're working. So I'm working the 12-inch pillow, so then I would just basically multiply that by 2, and that gives me a 24-inch cord. If you're working like the 16-inch, you'd want at least a 32-inch cord, and so on. And of course you can always use a cord that's longer. So again here I'm going to be knitting the 12-inch pillow in this tutorial. But I have a really long cord here just because I don't mind having the extra cord. Then this is the yarn I'm using. So this one I picked up at my Joann's. This one's the Big Twist, and I picked this one specifically because it's anti-pill. So it'll be nice on a couch so that you don't have to worry about it kind of like wearing away over time or also coming off in anyone's clothing. Each skein of yarn has 115 yards or 105 meters. And basically in this pattern, I'm going to be holding this yarn double. So for the 12-inch size, you do just need 2. If you go above the 12-inch size though, you will need additional things of yarn. So just look down below in the pattern for how many you need. And then lastly, the weight of this yarn. It recommends a size US 11 knitting needle. And this one's listed as a super bulky yarn. I would actually say this one's kind of on the lighter side of a super bulky yarn. That's why I picked it. But again, you're going to want to look for yarn that recommends basically like a size US 11 or a super bulky that's on the lighter side. So now I'll get started with the cast on. So now I'm going to start casting on, and for the smaller size, I want to cast on 54 stitches. And when I do that, I also want to have at least around a 20-inch tail that I can use for seaming later on. So if you've never held yarn double, basically what I do is I just take the ends of the 2 skeins, line them up together, and then depending on what kind of cast on method you use, so I'm going to be using the long tail cast on method. You can use any cast on method you'd like for this pattern, but I'm just going to pull along both of the strands until I have enough of a tail to start casting on. And then holding both strands together, I'm going to make my slip knot. And then basically as you go along casting on, you just want to hold both strands together as if they were one strand. So for instance there, I do have 8 strands across the knitting needle, right? But it's really only 4 stitches because I'm holding them double. And so that's really just the only key there, is that you just want to hold both strands together as you're knitting, as if they're one strand. It really isn't any trickier at all. So I'm going to cast on my 54 stitches. So I just finished casting on those 54 stitches, and the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to take my tail and I'm just going to tie it up so it's out of the way and I don't accidentally start knitting with it. Okay, so now that's out of the way, I'm just going to turn my work. And now at this beginning portion, there's going to be 2 rows that we repeat over and over again. And for the small size, we're going to repeat them over and over again for a total of 4 inches. So this repeat is first going to be to purl 5. Then I'm going to knit until 5 stitches remain. And now I'm going to purl those final 5 stitches. Now when I turn my work, I'm going to be doing the next row. So in this one, I'm going to knit 5, then I'm going to purl until 5 stitches remain, and then I'm going to knit the last 5 stitches. And if you want to, you can add a stitch marker for the back or the front of your work. So the front side of your work is actually going to be this one with the knit stitches right here. And you can tell it's the front side of the work. Let me just zoom in real quick. You can tell it's the front side of your work because it starts off with kind of like this flat area, and then there's purl bumps after that. So this flat area right there is where we're going to be knitting on the front side, and then we purl across all these purl bumps. Whereas when we're on the wrong side of our work, it starts off and it ends with these purl bumps, and then the flat portion is actually in the center. So now I'm going to continue repeating those 2 rows where, as I just showed you that previous one, it was purl 5, knit until 5 remain, then purl the last 5. And then on this side, I knit 5, purl until 5 stitches remain, and then knit the last 5. Over and over again until my work measures 4 inches from the cast on edge. And I want to finish, just measure from down here to basically the bottom of your knitting needle. And I want to finish after a row 1. So basically I want to finish after I just completed one of these starting and ending with purl stitches. And then basically I want to be ready for the next step once I have these knit stitches facing me at the beginning. So again, just repeat over and over again until you're as close to 4 inches as you can get with the 2 rows. So I've now finished working that 4 inches, and I've finished after a row 1. So basically I just worked a row 1 and I turned my work. So now when I have my work facing me and I'm about to start the next row, I should have the knit stitches at the beginning and then the purl bumps after. So this row is going to be a decrease row. And so the first stitch I want to do is I want to do a knit 2 together. So that's where I'm going to take my right needle and go into both of the first 2 stitches. And basically I start 2 stitches in, then go towards, kind of through the center of both of those, wrap my yarn around and pull through, and that's a knit 2 together. Now I'm going to knit 3, and the center portion is exactly the same, so I'm just going to purl until those 5 stitches remain. Now that I'm at those final 5 stitches, I'm going to knit the first 3, and then I'm going to do a slip slip knit. So that's where you slip the first stitches if you're going to knit it, slip the second stitches if you're going to knit it, pass them both back over to your left needle, and then you want to take your right needle and go through the back of both the stitches and knit them together. So we just decrease 1 stitch. Now that I've finished that initial decrease row, there's going to be another 2 rows that I continue to repeat over and over again until I reach the desired length. So the first repeat row is going to be the one that's on the wrong side of our work, or the one that's basically where the purl bumps are at the beginning. And so this row, it's going to be to slip the first stitch purlwise, but don't actually purl it, you just want to slip it. Purl the next 3 stitches. Then I'm going to knit across all these center stitches. So I'm going to knit until 4 stitches remain. And now I'm just going to purl those final 4 stitches. Now I'm going to turn my work, and again on this side, so this is the second row I'm going to be repeating over and over again. I'm going to slip the first stitch knitwise, then I'm going to knit 2, and now I'm going to again work a slip slip knit. So I'm going to slip the first stitch as if to knit it, slip the second stitch as if to knit it, pass both those stitches back over to my left needle, then take my right needle point and go into the back of both those stitches and work them together. So again, this first section is to slip this first stitch purlwise. So don't knit it or twist it, just slip it purlwise. Then I'm going to knit 2. Then I'm going to do a slip, slip, knit. Now, again, I'm going to purl across this whole center section until, on this side, you want it until there's 5 stitches remaining. So you want to wait until there's 1 more purl bump left before you stop. Okay, so I now have those 5 stitches remaining. So the next thing I want to do is just bring my yarn to the back, and then I'm going to work a knit 2 together. So I'm basically working together the last purl bump and the first knit stitch. I'm going to do a knit 2 together, and then I'm going to knit the last 3 stitches. Then, once I finish that row, I would just turn it over again. And again, the row on the purl side was just to slip that first stitch purlwise. So don't purl it or anything, just slip it. Then you'd purl 3, knit all the way across until there's 4 stitches remaining, and then purl the last 4. So the main thing you want to remember is first you always want to slip the first stitch on every row purlwise. And then the second thing to remember is you're only going to be doing those 2 decreases on the right side of your work. So when you have that knit border on the outside and the purl bumps in the middle, that's the side where you want to be doing the decreases. So now I'm going to continue working, and the length for this 12-inch pillow is going to be until basically my length from the cast on edge until the bottom of the knitting needle is just below 11 inches. And then I'll come back and I'll show you how to cast off, and then we just have to do a little bit of seaming for this piece before we move on to the next step. And basically what you're going to see is, if I just draw this one, the shape you should see forming is essentially we have this little rectangle we just made down here at the bottom. So that's this portion. And now we're going to keep on decreasing on both sides. So we're going to basically start tapering in both ends, and then we'll cast off along the top. And then eventually we'll be able to fold this in half and make that pillow shape. But that's the shape you're going to be looking for as you're knitting this piece. So again, I'll come back and I'll show you what mine looks like right before I cast off. I've now finished working that 11 inches. And it is okay if your work curls at the bottom. You don't have to worry about that, because at the end we'll seam it. And it'll just flatten out. But the last step up here at the top is going to be to cast off. So to cast off, I'm just going to do a fairly standard cast off here. I'm going to slide the first stitch purlwise. Then I'm going to knit the next stitch. Now I'm going to take the stitch that's further away and kind of slide that one up over the one that's closer to the end of the knitting needle and off. Now again, I'm going to knit the next stitch, and I'm going to take the stitch that's further away, pick it up with my left knitting needle, and then take it up, over, and off that second stitch. And I'm just going to continue doing this all the way across, where I knit 1 stitch, then cast the further away stitch off, and I continue knitting all the way across this edge. You don't have to switch to purling for the purl bumps or anything like that. So now at the end, I just threaded my balls of yarn through that last open loop and then just pulled it tight. And now I'm going to cut my yarn. I am going to leave probably about an 18-inch tail. And now I'm ready to begin seaming. So this is the front side of my pillow. And the way I know this is the outside is, again, because I have those knit stitches down the outside, so it's kind of like flat. And then in the center, I have all my purl bumps. So the way I want to seam this is I basically just want to grab the center and fold it in half. And that just makes it so I have my little diagonal over here on the right side, and then it's folded down the center. And the different places I want to seam are, first, I'm going to seam all the way across this top edge. So I'm going to take, you can either just take one of these pieces right here and just seam with that and then weave in the other one, or you can seam with both of them. It's really up to you. And then down here in the bottom corner, I'm going to take one of these tails and seam up just the flat part, so just the 4 inches. Then I'm going to take the other tail, because remember we're holding it double, so we have 2 tails, and I'm going to seam all the way across this bottom edge. So in total, I'm going to seam 1, 2, and 3 places. And I'll show you this top seam as I do that, and then the seams down here will follow the same general trend. I'm going to start by seaming across this top edge, so just to make it a little bit easier. I like to kind of angle it upwards so that the seam is up. And I'm just going to be weaving it in with just one of my tail pieces, and then I'll weave in the other one separately. So the way I do this is my cast off edge right here, so I kind of just fold that over, and then you can see there's all these V's that are formed. So what I'm going to do is for each time I go from one side to the other, I'm going to pick up both sides of the V. Then I'm going to go over to the other side and find the first V again. And just keep on alternating back and forth, picking up the next stitch. And sometimes you do have to kind of pull the cast off edge a little bit away from the below stitches to be able to figure out exactly where you are in the work. So now that I've gone a little ways down, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull this string tight. If you're working with real wool, don't pull it too tight because the wool will break. And now you can see that it really just kind of blends those 2 sides together really nicely. So once I go about an inch or 2, then I pull on the string to kind of bring the 2 sides together even tighter. And then I just continue on. And it can get a little trickier as you come into this corner, but just be careful to keep on getting 1 stitch from each side, and then eventually it'll even out. And you should be able to go all the way to the end of each side. Okay, great. And now when I thread I'm just going to pull it one more time. When I thread my yarn to the other side, I just want to go right in that corner. And if I look at the inside of my work, you can see I just created a ridge all the way along the inside. And along the outside, those 2 sides blend together really nicely. So now I'm going to do that exact same thing along the bottom edge, and then I'm also going to go up the sides. So when you go up the sides, the ones you're going to be picking up, because the stitches are now in a different direction. So when you're going up the sides, where you want to pick up is if you stretch your work out a little bit, you can see there's this one side row. That's our first stitch. And then after that row, there's these little bars. So you want to go along picking up 1 bar from each side and just alternating. So on this side, again, I have that first row of stitches. And then if I stretch out my work a little bit, I can find those bars. So I'm just going to go along and pick each of one of those up as I'm seaming it, just for that initial portion. And you can tell where that initial portion ends too, because we have those decreases on each side. So you just want to go up to where the decreases are. So that's all for the seaming part. So next I'm going to come back and show you the sewing portion to get the denim in. So there's quite a few different options for how you can actually sew the denim piece that goes inside. What I decided to do for mine is that only half of the pillow is denim, and then the other half is just a fabric color that matches, or somewhat matches, whatever color yarn I used. And the reason I did this is because I first found that the denim fabric was pretty expensive, so I just went over to the discount section and found some of the other fabric. And second is that I actually ended up, for my denim fabric, I used an older dress from a thrift store, and I just cut it up into pieces. So you can see there are still seams on this one. They're pretty faint, but I actually think they give it a really cool texture. Let's see if you can, there you go. You can see it better at that angle. So that's another reason, is that I would have run out of the denim fabric had I not done it this way. But I'll leave the instructions down below for if you are just cutting a full square of denim, how large to cut it, or if you're doing the method where you sew 2 pieces together, how large should you cut those. Also to show you the one that I've done in this video, so you can see that half of it's denim and then the other half is just a cream color. But you really don't notice when it's on, when the knit portion is on. So what I've done is I've cut 2 sets of triangles. So here's my first set for the front and then another set for the back. And all I'm gonna do first is I'm just gonna fold the pieces over one another. And then I'm gonna seam all the way down this diagonal. And I'm gonna repeat that again for the second set of pieces. Okay, now I just need to seam these 2 sides together. So the way I'm gonna do that is I'm just gonna put the denim triangles right on top of each other, and then the fabric portions also right on top of each other. Line them up. And again, always right sides together. So the way I found it's easiest to start sewing is if, let me use scissors to start pointing. I'm gonna start sewing somewhere over here on the fabric portion, right? Kind of close to the corner. I'm gonna go across, turn, come all the way down, turn, all the way across the denim, turn, all the way across the other denim, turn, and then I wanna stop somewhere like over here, right? Leave a gap here to put the pillow in. Then I'm just gonna inside this out, slide in the pillow, and then this one I haven't even seamed closed yet, so I'll just show you what it looks like. Put in the pillow, and then what I can do here is, if you wanted to, you could add a zipper to make this washable and everything like that, or you could just seam this edge closed once the pillow is inside. Then your pillow form will look something like this, and all you have to do then is just slide the pillow right into the little knit portion, and it turns out looking really cute, I think. Thanks for watching this tutorial. If you have any comments or questions, please feel free to leave them down below. In the description box, you'll find the full list of all the materials I used, as well as a link to the written pattern. And if you're new to my channel, don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.